So anybody who does not know Evan, I so I met Evan on TikTok. I um I didn't even at first I was like bioethicist. What is that? But then like your tagline. It's such a smart way to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Evan. I'm a bioethicist and I specialize in misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracy theories as a threat to public health. Everybody knows it. It's what's funny too is I started doing that. I did it for low vision people who were low vision, so that they knew when they're scrolling they knew that if this was content that they wanted to consume, they knew it was me immediately rather than
Mhm.
having to like figure it out.
I love it. I think we should all be doing that so that people like know who we are, right? Because they just don't do that extra step. When you say that, I was like, oh, what is a bioethicist? And then it's like conspiracy theories, public health, like all these things like interest me, and it also makes me want to listen more because I'm like, okay,
Well,
this
it's
isn't just someone giving an
contextualizing.
opinion. You are literally this
Yeah.
is your wheelhouse.
And like you said, I mean, like, no shame, this is no beef. I don't want to go back, on the TikTok because everybody likes to start beef, but
Hmm.
this is no beef to people who are just regular folks who like have a really great delivery of their point of view and like or their take or whatever.
Hmm.
There are people who are very much like they're a character, like they themselves are the character and
Yep.
their opinion is the content. And who am I to say whether or not that should be allowed? Mainstream media does it all the time with pundits,
Yep.
like, so I'm not going to demonize that, but I am not. I'm always very clear with people, especially when they leave comments that are like, you know, they're like, I don't know, I disagree with this take. And I'm like, this is not a take. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not, I haven't given you my opinions too often. I love to tell people that, like, if you go through my content, I haven't given you many opinions of things. I've
Hmm.
given you interpretations or context based on my inside the again the purview of my expertise, but I'm not yapping.
You talk a lot about the impact of social media on people's mental health a lot, and I
Hmm.
have so much to say about that, but not just in terms of people consuming it, but as creators, like I was not prepared for how much this impacts my mental health.
Yeah.
And there's one video where you literally said that the studies have shown that that if your experiences online, you more that way in person. Like I am more sensitive in person. I'm more like defensive until I got
Hmm.
moderators to help me with all these comments and people commenting. I'm not used to people making fun of my looks because I'm a writer, or on stage people aren't going to yell that at me. but
Right.
in but on videos they love to talk about my hair or my screeching, my like and I'm pretty ADHD, so I don't finish sentences a lot of times, and they love to tell me how I need to stop that. So it's been really hard adjustment for me, even though I already had some getting used to that for 10 years in like a micro level. So what do you like from your research and stuff? Can you kind of expand on the impact as creators and as consumers of it, how it changes people's worldview and their personal relationships?
Yeah, I mean, so the general research that exists, that the research I haven't seen yet that I would be excited to see, but we don't have enough,
Hmm.
like, we're only just now cresting on enough time. And TikTok's a unique platform. I want to say that too, is that I think it would be hard to do the kind of research that I'm interested in because every platform is very much different. The way
Yeah.
that people talk down to you on Twitter is experienced differently from the way that people talk poorly about you in the comments on Instagram
Yeah.
versus TikTok. And TikTok has these multiple levels of, like, first of all, people are seeing you because it's video format,
Hmm.
but then also there's things like live features and functions, and so it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
But the research that I haven't seen yet, and I always check back, is there's not a lot of research on the long-term effects on creators
Mm.
specifically. And I think that's a very unique experience, is the abuse that is expected of creators. That's more of that's a
Yeah.
it's a combination of like societal expectation and the experience of it and what it does. But we do know that social media in general is corrosive to your health. Facebook itself, it actually did research on this, and the research was so abysmal that they tried to, for a long time, like, shutter away the report that they had. I mean, they paid for it,
Yeah.
And the report, the people who did the research internally literally said, yeah, we basically induce eating disorders in like young children between the ages of like 11 and 15. And Facebook was like, ugh. Like, but they were like, but Instagram is so popular, like close that,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
even these own entities, when they've investigated their own platforms in the few times that they've attempted to do something to try and seem like they care, they've found that it's just as abysmal as like independent researchers.
Mhm.
The uniqueness is that there's twofold ways that social media affects your mental health. Number one, it can erode or make worse pre-existing conditions,
Yep.
right? So if you're fantastical, if you're narcissistic, if you are sociopathic, if you are corrosive or cruel, if you are depressed, if you are anxious, it will make those things worse. Like it
Mhm.
will absolutely draw out the worst parts of you.
Yep.
But in tandem to that, social media will also can induce these things in people that did not have them before.
Mhm.
Primarily, the research is done on depression and anxiety, and then there's a supercharging of it when you have what also gets blended in here is the supercharging of it with COVID and people becoming isolated in the house.
Yep.
TikTok is a great example. That's why TikTok kind of lives when I did this research, TikTok lives uniquely in its own place.
Mhm.
Then that's weird too, because you can actually assess things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, um, differently.
Is it
And
because of the algorithm or what? Why? Why is that?
it's because of the algorithm and the virality and the design of virality.
Okay.
On Instagram, even with its previous algorithms, there wasn't the ability to like go to bed after posting something and waking up with 300,000 followers,
Yep.
right?
Yep. That's why I've had to, if something was going off and it wasn't going in a good direction, and trolls might be entering the chat, I would private it for the night because otherwise I can't sleep.
Yeah,
Because I don't know if I'm gonna wake up to a banned account, maybe. Because
right.
what if they start mass reporting while I'm asleep and it would give me so much anxiety?
It's hypercharged interactivity
Hmm.
even though it's stagnant content. And what I mean by stagnant content is that it's not live, it's not
Hmm.
conversational, it's asynchronous. It's like when I show up on your For You page, that video could be from 3 months ago, that video
Yep.
could be from yesterday. Dr. Barlow, I don't know if you know, like, the whole thing
Oh
with,
yeah.
like
Yeah, I've been following that whole thing. Hmm.
that's a great example
Yep.
because she thought she was using a platform to post to her 36 students in her class.
Yep.
She never thought that especially her very first post
Yeah.
would go viral and result in her having 356,000 at last time I checked, 356,000 followers as a professor, and now she's a content creator.
Yeah.
That was a week's window. She was able to make a platform that is double the size of mine in a week, and my platform has been able to get to where it's at in the course of like 3 years. So
Yeah. Me too.
that's
Hmm.
TikTok's unique in that way because Instagram works all the other platforms work in the same way where it's like you sort of have to like slow and like
Yeah,
people
and
share
YouTube as
it.
well. Like YouTube is
Yeah,
like I like to say YouTube is like the slowest cruise ship ever. It's a slow build. Nothing for me has ever gone viral there. Whereas TikTok, you can literally have hundreds of thousands of followers in a few days with one video.
which is why a lot of people are now creating TikToks to try and hypercharge their other platforms. So long-term YouTubers are doing things like creating a TikTok account, building up enough followers, even if you have like 50,000, even if or
Hmm.
less, it creates a better opportunity for you to grow these other platforms that take, like you said, like sort
Yeah.
of a plodding amount of time to build up on. Or if you stagnated because you stopped being able to like reach people that might have an interest because there's just less people there.
Hmm.
I mean, TikTok has 2 billion something people on it.
But then to bring it back, so you also talked about and I find this really interesting, especially being in France, where the privacy laws are very strict here, and you're not supposed to post anyone really, especially monetize anything without the consent of somebody. Where in the
Mm.
U.S., it's like you could be doing literally anything, and actually, for safety reasons, obviously, I like that cameras are out there recording things, and but like at the same time, someone can go viral just doing nothing, and now all of a sudden, like without their consent, they're going viral and famous now. And so I'm curious, have they done research on the effect of the accidental influencers? I guess they haven't done that if they're not doing it about creators. They don't have the evidence yet for the.
Well, accidental viralness. So Monica Lewinsky, weirdly enough, because she is the first person, we don't really think about this. She's one of the first people to go viral.
Yeah.
1994 is when there's all of that like uproar around her and the possible, like at that time, with the suspected affair with Bill Clinton. That was when the like World Wide Web had just like entered people's homes and people would get e-newsletters. And so she went viral in a very, very old school way. But she did a recent documentary about how people's lives after going viral in a negative way, where they got
Hmm.
dogpiled or sea lioned or whatever, what their lives look like now. And there's long-term effects,
Yeah.
because although we forget about them in sort of the general like pop culture like conversation that's currently happening,
Hmm.
there's still residual effects for a lot of those people that makes it hard for them to do things like get jobs. It makes it
Hmm.
difficult for them to um like date. It makes it difficult for them to
Hmm.
buy homes or like to live in certain neighborhoods. It's really
Yeah.
wild. But more in line with your question is there is a lot of research that comes out now, and there's been a lot of lawsuits, weirdly enough, relating to mommy vlogging,
Yeah.
going back to again an old school viralness, because mommy vlogging is now somewhere around almost 30 years old. And so you
Hmm.
have children who were, what you're talking about, by
Hmm.
and large without their consent, were the impetus or were the catalyst or a core component of their entire household's income.
Yeah, and they were the product being consumed in the most
Mhm.
vulnerable ways. And what, I don't know if you follow the journalist who that is their sole focus.
Fortanesca,
With that.
something
Yeah.
Fortesca.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love
Mhm.
her. She does so much good work
Mhm.
on that. And it was like, oh yeah, like it pretty much ruins children's, more or less seems like that the what she's seen is like it's almost always like kind of bad or really bad because it's so violating, you know?
Well, because nothing's private, because the less private something is, the more value it has, right? So
Mhm.
there's been instances where like one girl who, and a lot of these people, even though they're adults now, they have, when they do speak to reporters or whatever, they blind their identity. So there was one girl who talked about how her mom, who was a vlogger, um, who was a there's vloggers and there's bloggers and then bloggers who became vloggers, all that
Mhm.
in that, stratosphere. But how her mom like posted an entire YouTube video about her experience telling the story and her experience with getting her first period. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is incredibly violating, and like for any other adult, it would be unacceptable. Like if somebody,
Mhm.
like if my sister like texted her friend the story of how like I got my first period, that would be such a violation emotionally. But for vlogging and for
Mhm.
parent vlogging, we didn't think about it. Like, and these vloggers were making money hand over fist on YouTube. I mean, the
Mhm.
branding they would get for like diapers and any product you can think of when it comes to children.
Mhm.
But a lot of these, and the other thing is that the laws in the US are such that these parents did not have to pay their children any sort of wage
Yeah,
or put
because
it
it wasn't
away.
like SAG or any of the other ones where they have a
No.
union and rules. They don't. It's like violating all these child labor laws, but
So
it's
this
not technically because they're not
right.
working. Mhm.
So that's the issue, right? Is that like if you had like with Macaulay Culkin, we already see so much violation of children's rights. And I'll say this, in medicine, we have children don't have, in the US, they don't have consent past like 18, 16 or 18, depending.
Mhm.
But they have what's called assent. So ASSENT.
Okay.
So in having assent, that means that children, even though if your parents say, hey, like, yes, you can proceed with this procedure or this therapy or this treatment, children are allowed to, with their behavior, a display of behavior or with their verbalization say rescind that consent. So
Okay.
all medical professionals are trained to understand assent. So if I'm trying to give a child a, you know, uh, um, an injection of some sort and they're screaming, they're crying, they're upset, a medical professional has to at some point say, I cannot perform this procedure. This child is displaying, negative assent. They're not interested.
Mhm.
Um, and so what you can do is you can come back, we can talk about this, or maybe you can talk to the child, we can talk to the child. A lot of pediatricians and a lot of people who work with children are able to like have a conversation and acquire consent from the child or acquire, so that they can proceed.
Mhm.
So, and then in other countries like Switzerland, children have consent. And in Canada, they have consent down to like 11 or 12. Some places are young as 8, where
Mhm.
children can consent or not consent on their own legally.
Mhm.
In the US, these things are not, when it comes to like the world of like entertainment industry, like movies, like Macaulay
Mhm.
Culkin. We hear this all the time with like, um child actors, how like their trust fund was violated because there's
Yeah.
only a certain amount of money that they have to keep in them, and which is like $15,000 a year, even if they're making millions. Like
Mhm.
there's all these things that can be violated, but there's some structure. With family vlogging, there's none.
Mhm.
Some states have started to implement laws. There's a one girl who was the product of a family vlogging relationship, who has really been pushing for laws in like Utah because a lot of family vlogging is out of Utah. That's the other thing I will say is family vlogging lives somewhere between like trad life and alt-right pipelining. So
Yep.
that's another weird thing.
Yep.
But some states are starting to endeavor to think about laws and critically around these things, because the other thing that happens with these children's images is they get used a lot in things like pedophilia attention.
Yeah, or like when I did it was brought to my attention when some of the people who are more aware of this were like, "Hey, if you don't disagree with the family vlogging stuff, just go to their account and see how sometimes how like sexualized like the kid like a 2-year-old is eating a hot dog in a very weird way and it's saved or like by 5,000 who why are people saving that and you're like, "Oh my god." And I
Yeah.
actually learned that lesson the hard way myself when I did a video like in September when a dude was like cracking off at the river and I ended up just like turning my phone on because I wanted a witness and I was like, oh my God, there's a guy. And so I ended up kind of talking through it. And that's the first time I've ever told a story that I hadn't had time to digest and work through.
Mm.
And I posted it. And I know from years of storytelling to never tell a story before I'm ready to because it and I learned the hard way. It was so much more violating the comments. It's one of the only videos I've ever had to go that went viral that like that. It was like a million in like a couple days. And it was saved. I went and looked at who was saving it. Men. And they
Yeah.
were basically I was like, oh my God, they are knocking off to my fear. And that made that like it made me physically ill. I had to go off the internet for like a week or something. I had to go to the doctor and he was like, this is your wake up call. You got to be more intentional about what you put on the internet. And then I started thinking about some of the other stuff I was reading today and took notes on about how the internet to us it may just be a moment, but like what you were saying before, it could ruin your life 10 years down the road if you make fun of somebody who then or whatever troll someone who then ends up becoming governor or like in a position of power, or it can ruin a relationship like it, that you said this is the first time in history that we've ever had it so that people's whole life is documented like
In that
can you go
way.
into that? Sorry, I don't want to derail the conversation, but these are also connected.
No. I mean, it is connected because so one of the things that, and the credit is due to my wife, because my wife worked in trafficking for years.
Okay.
She worked in trafficking. She has an MPH and she's a licensed social worker, and she does like evaluation work, but she's worked in trafficking and she's also worked in oncology. So when I do know things about like clinical oncology, it's usually because I have, or trafficking and work. I have usually made sure to like talk to her first to make sure
Mhm.
like these facts are like accurate and I'm using the
Mhm.
right language
Yeah.
reflectively. But one of the things that you learn pretty early on in trafficking, that's sort of like a tertiary component of it, is things like revenge
Mhm.
and child. And one of the things the internet has done is that there are people now who are older. And when I say older, I don't mean like 20, I mean like 35, 38,
Mhm.
years old, 40 years old, who their images, their child like images, sexualized images they are still trying to pull them off the internet. And so anybody who's been the victim of either of these things knows how eternal the internet is. So it's not me being dramatic or being
No.
like be careful, what you say. I'm like dead serious. Like I'm not telling you to be careful. If you want to get into like a whole like verbal altercation like in Starbucks, like I don't know, get into it. Do what you need to get that latte.
Mhm.
But my issue is that people and again, TikTok is unique in this way. It makes people feel something in a moment because number one, in the structure of video that does really well in TikTok is this like sort of very personalized talking to a camera sort of design.
Mhm.
It feels like someone is talking to you. People like that. It's also a great way to educate, which is why I like using it that way.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also like FaceTiming. A lot of
Yeah.
people like this is how they socialize is FaceTiming a friend like this, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so the issue being is that we feel when we see content that strikes us emotionally, usually negatively, not positively,
Mm.
we like to respond. And TikTok makes it very easy to respond because you can stitch, because you can dirty stitch, because you can
Mhm.
immediately open up right at the bottom and like start recording yourself. And we treat these things as like the actual sociological term, which I got dragged left, right, and center. But there is an actual sociological and media communications term for it, which is ephemeral to eternal. That we
Yes.
as people, we engage with social media as if it's ephemeral because our feelings are ephemeral, right? Like the way that we feel about these things is temporary.
Yeah.
So I go past one of your videos and I'm like, oh Mel, always spouting off that bullshit. And I decide to respond. And then I close it, I post it, and I go back to scrolling, or I close the whole app and I go off to work, or I go to my friend's house, or I go and live and exist in the real world,
Yeah.
or just go somewhere else on the platform and go back to watching cat videos or whatever. What I'm not recognizing in that moment is that the moment you post something, and we see this all the time, is that it is now eternal. And when it
Yeah.
was really bothering me because in the comments of that video, people are like, "Well, then how come I can't get my pictures off of MySpace?" That because MySpace is shut down. And I'm like, "Yeah, MySpace is shut down, but you do realize someone who followed you downloaded your pictures."
Mhm.
So now, will they ever reemerge? That I can't tell you. But
Yep.
what I can promise you is that these things are able to reemerge when it is beneficial or when it is able to be weaponized
Yeah.
against you. So like and I don't think anybody that was in your top 8 who saved some of your photos on MySpace are ever going to come forward and be like, "I have some of our these drunken pictures that you posted on MySpace." But I
Mhm.
do think that if you're running for senator and you posted a video on TikTok, using a lot of racial epithets, that yeah, it's gonna reemerge.
Mhm.
Um, or even just, other more subtle things that aren't that extreme, but we treat it that way. The other thing too is that people move things across platforms for you. I mean, you and
Yeah,
I
like
both
you
know
said
having gone
before, if it
viral.
goes to 4chan or Reddit, and it was on TikTok where in that context it's different, and then they will because they did that to one of my videos. They took it and the red pill dudes put it on YouTube in front of 35,000 followers, and I was like, I was getting dive bombed on all my platforms, and I was like, where is this coming from? Yeah, like it's good. The different platforms, like you said, are different. So if it shows up on like 4chan or one of those things, then you're in trouble, and they're also going to take the context away.
Which is why it's always important. And again, this goes back to like the design of my page. It's why I design my content the way I do because I want to always be able to comfortably show the totality of the original piece
Mhm.
and say, this is the full context. And I try to be careful with language, like, cursing or whatever, because I never want that to occur for me, right?
Mhm.
It's I mean, which is what made what made people cutting that ephemeral to a eternal video so funny, is that in order to try and get like what looked like a nefarious clip, they had to cut it so tight that
Mhm.
people were like, because I define it right after I say it. I'm like, this is a great example of ephemeral to eternal. And then I immediately define it. So in order to like make me look like some sort of like douche, they had to like cut it so tight
Yeah, that
that it
it's
was
like
like a
suspicious because it's so small.
yeah, it was like a second and a half, and it
Mhm.
was like, and so a bunch of people actually who weren't even like followers of mine necessarily went to the original video because they were like, that was just so small, like that cut.
Mhm.
So that's how I ended up actually knowing that like I was like had been like cut in that way, again, maliciously.
Yeah.
Was that people were like, I came from this other video and that said all these things, but it was cut so thinly that I had to like investigate further.
So many of the things that I wanted to talk about have all come into just I'm like the the access to people, like people feeling like they can just say whatever they want and there's no repercussions. People also thinking they can make videos about whatever they want, and maybe they're just joking. But
Yeah.
and the thing is, I don't want to scare people from not being creative online. It's just we're in
Oh,
this weird world now where like I get why stand-up comedians make people put their phone in a bag now and lock it away because they can't actually work on their craft, which is live stand-up shows without the
yeah.
threat of someone taking a clip and because they're working it out live. Luckily, as a writer, I was doing all that. No one sees my stuff until the final product is there. But stand-up
Mhm.
comedians, they have to like basically edit it through experience in front of an audience, and so it makes it, which then also we can come back to in a minute, but like when you were talking when you did a live with White Woman Whisperer about this, like no one is able to learn anything. Nobody
Mhm.
is able, like we have to be perfect. We like the policing of, there's so many things I would hit on in this live that I was just like, oh my God. So I don't want to derail what we're saying, but this dehumanization
Mhm.
that happens online from the person, people commenting, from the people posting, from the people like that I found that I even really can dehumanize myself, and I was like, holy crap, I have made myself the product that people consume, and I got
Mhm.
and I started realizing, oh my God, I am just giving things away for no reason because I feel like I owe it. So I had to work on my like codependency and boundaries with myself so that I make sure that some areas of my life are private and precious and nobody gets access to those, because I kind of forget that I should value my own privacy, even though the world may feel entitled to it because I'm a creator.
Or
You know what I
entitled
mean?
to your explanation or
Yeah.
entitled to your response. I think that's the other thing that social media sort of like misleads creators on, is that people feel entitled to your response. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that actually is a very good tool for cutting down on extending legitimacy to people who are interested in creating misinformation and disinformation, specifically disinformation, either about you or just in general, is that you should not like, and we're not learning this, which sucks because rage bait is such great engagement tool.
Mm-hmm.
um but that when people are creating disinformation, the best tool is to not just actively avoid their content, but to block them.
Mm-hmm.
um because and on TikTok it affects their algorithm and yours,
Yeah.
right? It stops showing them to less and less folks who are
Yeah.
similar, however you're grouped, but it also means they have less people they can access. But when we give them our own platforms by like, this is why I don't like debate bros, this is why I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
because there are people that in the disinformation sphere I know about that have no expertise, they have no value whatsoever to any conversation they're in.
Yeah.
They are truly there for the monetization of it, and we've given them the ability to monetize
Mm-hmm.
because by wanting to disagree with them in front of a camera, in front of an audience. And that's like not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to explain myself. And so, as someone who is most of my content is based on or is entirely based inside of like things that I know intrinsically because I had to research them or read about them. I use this information for work.
Mhm.
I'm not arguing with you
Yep,
because
and I love that.
I there's like so if you make a video about me and your video is like a, a lot of times the videos I've seen have been like intense projection. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying it doesn't get to me emotionally. There's something
yeah,
emotionally really like striking about someone intensely projecting and misrepresenting you and just making things up about you.
yep.
But I do find it humorous because the way that I look online, like the way that you see me now, I am always home when I'm making a video or doing a
Mhm.
live. This is not how I dress for a conference. This is not how I dress for work.
Mhm.
This is not how I engage with anybody in my profession.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, and that's the other narrow thing on things like social media is people think that because you're a creator, this is your profession. Now, this is not to minimize people who this is their profession or this
Yeah.
is their job, but I this is something I do and I have a job.
Mhm.
This doesn't pay me the way I guess everybody else has figured out how to monetize it. It just
Mhm.
doesn't,
Yep.
like
Mhm.
so it's these little things that are funny, but that we can't engage as much as we're tempted to, trying to correct the record, correct the record, correct the record, which
Mhm.
is really hard to like avoid.
I want, and you've talked about this too. I want to role model what I do in real life, which is I don't want to waste my time because the whole point is to waste your time.
Yeah.
They want to wear you down, and so I want a role model for because a lot of people follow me are like have been in really unhealthy relationships a lot of times. They're survivors, and so they're kind of just getting are newer at setting boundaries and really kind of respecting
Mhm.
their time and energy maybe because they're just so traumatized or they've never seen it role modeled really well. So if I let people attack the people in my comments, then I'm not protecting them. And if I let them attack me in my comments, I'm role modeling that just for engagement and so I can build my platform. I'm going to let you talk shit about me. No. So
Or that I'm gonna come outside of my nature too. Like I'm
mhm.
gonna come outside of the person that I am.
Yeah.
Now, I there's something to be said for defending yourself and like, there's something to be said for being like, hey, like that's enough from you or whatever. But it's a whole other thing to let people take you completely outside of yourself,
Mhm.
which online people are very good at doing
Yeah.
because we're not able to actually truly like sense how this is having such an emotional effect on one another, right? Like
Mhm.
even you and I talking live in this moment, if I was sitting with you in a coffee shop, you could sense in my like like the energy
The
around me
energy,
or like
exactly.
the or in like the way that I'm holding my body or like the way that I'm like playing or not playing with my pastry or whatever,
Mhm.
how uncomfortable or comfortable you're making me feel
Yeah.
and how you may or may not be hurting my feelings. Like all of that's very important to socialization. And this is actually where polarization has come from, an
Mhm.
explosion of polarization. And this is why I like to remind people in my content whenever I can that like creators are for many creators, unfortunately, they are the least socially adept people.
Mhm.
And what I mean by and so what I mean by that is I don't want you to look at everybody you follow and be like, "Oh, you don't have friends," but
Yeah,
I
like you're
do
a
want you
loner because you're a content creator. Yeah, I know that's not what you're saying.
but there is something to be said about your favorite yapper who has time to make 3, 4, 5, 12 videos
Yeah,
in the same spot on their couch or their bed
yeah.
every day, and your favorite, like or your favorite like, scientist who makes a video once a day, couple times
Mhm.
a week or whatever. That there but all of these people are making content in a moment when they're alone because content creation by nature is a lonely action.
Yep.
And so when you see somebody like I want people to start to like fill in the outside of like there's like what we're seeing here, right?
Mhm.
I want you to fill in the rest of the room.
Yeah.
And so like when you see somebody's like, "Oh, get ready with me for the day." They didn't do anything that day. They made that video.
Mhm.
They set up a camera in a dark room,
Yeah.
laid down in a bed, and then sat back up to make it seem like
Yeah.
they woke up. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, thank you for bringing all this up because it really like we don't a lot of times we're not critically thinking about who this is and what they're doing, and it's not like a judgment on them, it's just like the context of that they're
And it
doing
has bearing. It has
this.
really important bearing when you're thinking about when someone is making like a takedown piece of another creator, or if someone is um giving you the news, right? Like that one always does me in. We have to recognize these techniques that people use that are prioritizing their monetization, because I understand it's people's jobs and they need to get paid,
Mhm,
but we have a choice too on whether or not we're going to help them get paid by engaging with it, right? And so like draw filling in that like other like the context that's outside of this little square. So the best
mhm,
example is like people keep asking me about like bird flu, like what
mhm.
about bird flu? And I'm like, I'm not worried about bird flu, I'm worried about all of you getting neurovirus, because all of you are shitting yourselves. All of you are right now. One of you is watching my video on the toilet wondering why your stomach hurts. You all is that like you cannot sell me on fear of something when you are not taking the right precautions to begin with. And
Mhm,
so when people are making content that's so fear-based and it's about something that they don't have expertise in, and then I think it's super unfair. Show me the resources and show me the reference material. I put notes on the screen because I want you to know exactly where I got this. I want you
mhm.
to know what I know. I don't want you to know that I said it.
Yep.
I want you to know everything I know. So I've condensed it to 10 minutes. You can go read the whole book end to end, chapter to chapter, all the way through.
Mhm. Something I've been thinking about a lot. I do think like there is a place for anger and like what the
Mhm.
hell, because so many people who follow me are survivors of extreme violence from men, and I want them to feel validated in their anger. But I also have to have some. I'm trying to make sure I put some sort of hope or some sort of like what you can do with this or some sort of context so that it's not just leaving people in despair and anger. And I can tell if I'm not doing that well by my comment section, which is what in one of your videos you go through a lot of the criteria that you try to think about when
Mhm.
following people to gauge their intent, or like if there's somebody who's just trying to make money versus really trying to educate and trying to change. Do you remember the things that you think about when you look at someone's page and the spirit of their page by the commenters and what they're doing?
I don't remember the exact words. I used alliteration in that video because alliteration is one of the best ways that people learn. So I
Mhm.
know that I used it was context, context, dang.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah,
Hold
pull
on.
it up.
Assess and identify more empathetic and informative and introspective content. See if the content itself, the concepts, the comment section, and the conversations that are coming out of all of that.
Yes.
If they are clapping back and criticizing, if they're being disrespectful, if they're liking comments that are really mean, like if the comments are full of bullying, I want this to be a place that's fun and educative and we learn and we can be challenged and we can, but like if the comments are people being like bigots or awful and disrespectful, I hide them from commenting because even just leaving it up there
Yeah,
shows almost like I'm co-signing it. So I spend a lot of time in the comment section, and you actually respond to so many comments, which I
I
probably more
do.
than anyone I've ever seen. And that takes a lot of time. I really respect that. But you can tell by what people like in terms of the comments, how they're responding, and what they're allowing on their page. And so I can read more, but you probably, if you want to comment on the stuff that I said, because I do think people need to take an inventory of who they're following and how
Yeah.
that's impacting us and our mental health, and especially in this moment
It's
where
our health.
everything is about like like it's just a really like
It's
weird
our mental
economy.
health. And one of the other things too is that it's very reductionist. I mean, as
Hmm.
someone who works in public health, it is a huge part of my job to get people interested in taking care of their health for the foreseeable future, for their lives. So in public health, I specialize in COVID and HIV specifically. So
Hmm.
I'm not having a conversation with a population like fly by night. I am trying to build relationships with a community and a population for life. Um, And I'm always trying to get people to consistently engage with their health, right? Like, so with things like HIV, I'm not trying to get you to get tested once. I want you to get tested repeatedly throughout your sexual health history and life.
Mhm.
It does not there's so many research projects that have shown this in public health, specifically public health research that has been done, that shows that fear does not teach us anything. Fear is a very good motivator for about 20 minutes. Fear is useful for like the fallout period of like where
Mhm.
we like need people to act and act fast.
Yeah.
And then people start to develop either nihilism, or they
Mhm.
start to develop neglect.
What I love about your work is that, like, I realize that I'm still being manipulated so much online, and you provide data and research and things to help me reframe it so that I like being online as a just person, as a consumer or as a creator, really makes you, as much as I've made so many amazing friends and like I love my community online, it still more or less makes me terrified of the world and
Mhm.
terrified of or for humanity. And that's what it's designed to do. So can you talk about the Monsters Inc. Metaphor that you were talking about?
Well, the Monsters Inc. example was what I when we talk about generating engagement on platforms online. Frequently, if anybody's seen Monsters Inc., the background is on Monsters Inc. Throughout the whole movie, there's this premise that they have to frighten children because screams are what runs Monster City, right? Monster
Hmm.
City doesn't run without the screams of children. And so, as the two main characters, Sully and Mike, by sheer accident build a relationship with a child, they realize like how really terrible it is to frighten children, even
Hmm.
if it's how their city is run.
Hmm.
Um, and at the end of the movie, what they discover is actually that the child's laughter is far more powerful than their screams. And so
Yeah.
they've been being told by this like, character that's clearly the capitalist, billionaire class character,
Hmm.
who's trying to get them to like get back to work and like turn over the child to be like confiscated and all this stuff. That character is persistently convincing all of them that there is no other way to generate wealth,
Hmm.
and generate what they even need, not even wealth, generate what they need in Monster City, other than to scare children. But in the end, I think it was so brilliant for them to be like to point out that like actually what powers the city even better and is an easier job for us and is beneficial and creates symbiosis with children in this other world that we have to go in and out of to access what we need, the resources we need, is
Hmm.
to make them laugh.
Hmm.
Um, and so when it comes to social media, a lot of these big social media platforms are sort of living in that like we have to make the children scream
Yeah.
in order to generate capital, in order to have value, in order to like, you know, develop like um monetary means of existing. And if we don't make the children scream, then all of you won't have your platform and nobody will make money and we'll all die,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And I just don't buy that because my platform is exactly not that. When I started this account, I pretty quickly decided to turn it into a possible portion of my thesis where I wanted to know, do people want to know disinformation, or do people are just people wanting to know more about their health and public health?
Hmm.
And my answer is I thought I would get like 1,300 followers or like 500 followers and be like, "Oh, people like this." And then I'd close the account and move on and
Hmm.
write about it in my conclusion. And then I like kept going viral for like information, just like
Hmm.
good information. And so what that tells me is that the city can run on laughter. It doesn't have to run on screams.